When we think about immigration, we usually picture a story of new beginnings. But what happens when that new life gets turned upside down? When a family's foundation starts to crack? Today, we're going to dig into the really unique challenges immigrant families face during a divorce. It's a story that's not just about pressure, but also about incredible resilience. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll kick things off with a stat that might actually surprise you. Then we'll look at the specific pressures that come with a new life in a new country. After that, we'll unpack what's called the dual burden on children, lay out a practical roadmap for parents, and finally, talk about why a whole community support system is so essential.
All right, so first up, the numbers. Because honestly, they tell a story that's probably not what you're expecting when it comes to divorce in Canada.
So, let's get our bearings. According to Statistics Canada, roughly 24%, so about 1 in 4, first marriages in the country end in divorce or separation. This is kind of our baseline for what's happening nationwide.
Now get this. This is where it gets really interesting. You might think with all the stress of moving to a new country, the divorce rate would be higher, right? Well, actually, it's the opposite. Immigrant families divorce less often. And this could be for a bunch of reasons. Strong cultural values, maybe religious beliefs, or even just the economic reality that you really have to depend on each other to make it.
And that leads to a really important question. If it's happening less, why are we talking about it? Why is it so urgent? Well, because when a divorce does happen in an immigrant family, the fallout, the impact, can be so much more severe. It gets magnified by all those other pressures of starting over.
So let's peel back that first layer of the burden. We're talking about the intense, specific kinds of stress that only come from uprooting your life and moving to a new country.
Just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. There's this huge financial pressure, especially if your professional degree from back home isn't recognized here. That kind of stress can just eat away at communication and intimacy. Sometimes traditional gender roles get completely flipped, which can create a ton of tension. And maybe the biggest thing, that support system of parents, siblings, cousins, they're thousands of miles away. The isolation can be just profound.
And this chart really spells it out perfectly. It shows how the normal, difficult challenges of any divorce get turned up to 11. The emotional pain, it's way worse when you're isolated. Financial strain, it's terrifying when your job isn't secure. Custody battles can get all tangled up with immigration status. And on top of all that, there can be this intense cultural stigma, where divorce is seen as this huge failure. Okay, and now we get to the heart of it, really, the kids. Because they are caught in the middle of this, facing what experts call the dual burden. It's like their two worlds, their family and their new country, are both shaking at the very same time.
So what exactly is this dual burden? Well, it's not just the trauma of your parents splitting up. It's that, plus the stress of trying to learn a new language, fit in at school, and figure out who you are when you're caught between two different cultures. It's a massive load for a child to carry.
And this quote, man, it just gets right to the core of it. For a kid, the big question is always why. And when they can't get a clear answer, that confusion, piled on top of all the other changes from immigration, can create this really deep, long-lasting anxiety.
And you can see this stress ripple out into every corner of a child's life. Emotionally, you see sadness, anger, confusion. Behaviorally, it might look like aggression, or maybe they just completely withdraw. In school, grades can plummet. Socially, it can create trust issues, and, really scarily, it increases the risk of serious mental health issues like depression.
So after hearing all that, you might be feeling like this is a pretty bleak situation. But it's not a story without hope. There is a real, actionable roadmap that parents can follow to help build resilience in their kids and in themselves. This 6-step guide really gives a clear path forward. Number 1, prioritize emotional stability. Kids have to hear over and over that this is not their fault. 2, maintain routines. Consistency is safety when the world feels like it's falling apart. 3, protect them from the conflict. Don't put them in the middle. 4, help them build a strong identity, celebrating their heritage while also embracing their new home. 5, don't try to do it all alone. Reach out for help. And finally, number 6, and this is a big one, practice self-care. A parent who is taking care of themselves is the absolute best resource a child has.
But let's be real for a second. What happens when the stress just becomes too much? What if you start to see the signs of actual depression in your child? It's a critical question, and one you need to be ready for.
It's so important to know what you're looking for. And remember, these aren't just signs of a kid being bad or acting out. Things like withdrawing from friends, a sudden drop in grades,
losing interest in hobbies they used to love. These are signals. These are signs that a child is hurting and needs help.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. Because here's the thing. While parents can do a lot, they absolutely cannot do it all. Real lasting resilience is a team sport. It's a community effort.
And this is just a fundamental truth, right? No matter how heroic a parent is, they can't be an island. Families going through this storm need a strong external safety net to catch them.
So what does that safety net actually look like? Well, it's built on 4 huge pillars. First, you need mental health services that are culturally sensitive, that get it. Second, you need schools with teachers who are trained to spot the signs of distress. Third, community groups and cultural organizations that fight that sense of isolation. And fourth, legal protections that actually understand the complexities of immigration status and work to prevent families from being torn apart.
And so that's where we'll leave it. Because the well-being of these kids, it's not just a private family issue. It's a reflection of how strong our communities are. So the real question for every single one of us is, how can we help build that stronger safety net? How can we make sure that starting a new life in a new country doesn't come at the cost of a child's well-being?